lesson we talk about pornography, and we have a small talk about grooming and online manipulation. So this lesson will start from that point. If you remember, I talked to you about what happens online when teenagers and underage use internet, and also when there are some adults that don't use in a proper way internet. When we left last lesson, I told you about some cases. If you remember, while we are waiting a few people that are late, I just said that if you remember, I told you about that case of that actress that has performed in a local disco, and the disco has been imprimed. The owner of the disco has been imprimed for pedopornography. The trial has been finished well, because we can show that there isn't pedopornography, because the only fact that the performer was a porno actress and shows with a very strict underwear and almost naked is not pedopornography. Is not showing pornography content to underages. This is important because it's one of the few is one of the few statements in Italy that talks about what is pornography show to underage. I think that the motivation of the statements will be free in 15 days, more or less, and with the right privacy statements, I will share with you, because there are some points that are very interesting in the definition about what is pornography shows to underage. So I would like to finish this point with you. Today we will talk about grooming. What is grooming? It's a situation when there are an underage and an adult that have a relation in not equal terms. What I mean, we are in the internet contest. We are in a non-equal contest, because a relationship between a teenager or a kid and an adult is hardly equal. Can you go on, Rachele, please, with the presentation? Okay. So in the very first slide, I put. Oh, sorry, there is a sentence in Italian. I will correct it before sending you these slides. My fault. Is a manipulative process made by an adult to approach and establish a relationship with a child or adolescent. This is the proper definition that we can find in the Lanzarote Convention. Lanzarote Convention, sorry. We will talk more properly later. is the statements of the UE that approach grooming and manipulative behavior between adult and child or teenagers. Where we are talking about grooming as is process is a major process that is made on the internet. Could you go on, Rachele? The first point, it's very important for me because when we talk about grooming, we have to remember some features. We used to talk. We used to think about about internet only in terms of social media, chat, but there is a field that it's very important and unknown, and it is the video games. I'm 40 years old, and I I know that teenagers games online only 2 years ago when I had to defend a 16 years old that has been groomed on a video game chat. Before that, I really didn't know that these video games now has these links. My fault, but I really don't know this new way of connection. And for the yeah, so I choose to study a little bit more about it, and I know that video games are the best way. Best, it's not a good word, but you can know it, to groom is the most used way to groom. Adults ignore the how dangerous is the video games chat. How dangerous are video games chat. I think that there is a thing that we must remember and we must know. If we want to talk about grooming, about the dangers that live in internet chat, internet world, we must remember that internet is a word and tool that changes every day. We can't talk about grooming, about internet without knowing that probably what we are talking about now, next week is just old. It's just overruled. And to me, it was a surprise because I don't know how video games works. I don't know how you can meet new people in it. I don't know. I didn't know how easy is to act like a kid or like a teenager in this world. So this is for me a very important point. Then, how does grooming work? It starts with gaining the trust of their underage. Then I will explain you better. Who is involved? Adult people, that often pretend to be a child or a teenager and pretend to be a child or a teenager to gain the trust that we have just said. Why? Because I think uh, no, I think that a child or a teenager didn't trust, doesn't trust another person that approach to him or her. How does the groomer work? The first step is a contact. The adult, as we said, often pretend not to be an adult, introduce themselves. So the very first contact is an introducing. Then it starts a friendship. The second step is friendship that is made, for example, in video games area, sharing tools, sharing credits, sharing the proper history of the account. Then the first step, we find manipulation for the first time. The first step is called relationship. Why? Because the groomer put something personal in the friendship and start manipulating. In the relationship, often the groomer isolate the kid or the children and made them think that nobody loves them, nobody trusts them. The isolation is a focus point on the groomer. The groomer, to gain the trust of the child or the teenager, made themselves think they are alone, and only the groomer is a trusty person. Fourth and fifth points are not so often. Why? Because sometimes they put an upper level and arrive in sexting. Let me say a thing. Sexting, when we talk about sexting in this topic, we have a negative connection. Sexting in a neutral connection is negative. We don't judge it, but now here we talk about a non-equal relationship. So sexting in a non-equal relationship, when there is a kid and an adult, always has a negative exception. Fifth point is meeting, and often with abuse, but is not so often in grooming. Statistic says that the groomer, the most of the time, stop their activity at the third point. It's very difficult to find a groomer that meet physically their victims. It's very not so often, because the groomer can work online and with the filter of a connection of a screen, but it's very difficult that goes to a meeting and have a physical abuse. Often doesn't mean that never happen. We have some example of abuse of physical meetings, but there are not so often in grooming. Can you go on, Rachele? Okay, sorry, because I had a little problem with my eyes. Now, I'm a lawyer. I work on gender-based violence. So my part in these lessons are focused on laws and on law system. And now I will show you I will share you some information about how Europe and state members works on the crimes and on the laws. In fact, as I said before, the Lanzarote Convention is as proclaimed in 2007. So in the last 20 years, Europe works to protect underage from grooming. And as we just said about stalking and about gender-based violence, Europe works not only on grooming and groomer, but works properly on all the behavior that prepare grooming and sexual abuse. This is a very important topic because we have just find it in other lessons, if you remember, and is a central point of the fight against gender-based violence and abuses. It's it can't work if we focus on the product, on the violence, on the abuse. We must fight against the preparatory behavior. Without this approach, the fight doesn't work. If you remember when we talked last lesson about pornography and pedopornography, we also talk about the red flags. And we share some laws of state members that works on these red flags. If you remember, but I think that we are talking about a few months ago when we talk about gender-based violence, we talk about the Spain model that fight all the minor crimes like that are involved in gender-based violence. Groomer has the same structure. The fight against grooming has the same structure. The UE defined with the Lanzarote Convention what is grooming, and then works on the preparatory conduct. Can you go on, Rachele? So I've just put here some of the credits of the UE laws. As you see, 2007 Lanzarote Convention, it's the first regulation about grooming. What does it say? It obliges member states to criminalize grooming. So with the Lanzarote Convention, for the first time, the Europe says that grooming is a problem, is something that must be criminalized, and says to every member states to work on their proper laws and defined it like a crime. In 2011, as a specific focus on the online grooming. If you remember, some minutes ago, I said that the fight against the online crimes must consider that online crimes changes every day. What now is a crime? Okay, just to see. I just a second, Ricardo. I came back to you. As I said, online crimes changes very quickly. We can't work properly on them if we don't consider that what now is a crime, tomorrow can change it. And then the very low step is member states law. So for the first time, the Lanzarote Convention is the mother of all the law of the communitary laws about grooming. Then we have a 2011 directive that focus on the online grooming, and then we have member states. So Ricardo asks, what's the difference between grooming, flirting, and other romantic relationships with a teenager? I guess it's about the intention. Grooming is about exploiting the inexperience of the younger, while a romantic relationship is about loving each other. I observe that there is a problem with the moral panic where people who are living peacefully in the respect of other people's bodies and bodies are labeled as perverts, groomers meant to be blamed because they are men and so they are dangerous. I think that, as we said at the very, very start of this lesson, the focus is on the not equal relationship. We talk about grooming when there is a not equal relationship. So one of the part is not at the same level of the other, not only for the age, because it's an error to think that the focus is only about the age. First of all, the groomer often pretend to be a kid or a teenager, so hide their age. They hide their age. So the other part, the teenager or the kid, think that they have a relationship or a friendship with people that are with someone that have the same age and the same condition. And so the second step is the manipulation. I think the difference, the bigger difference, the biggest difference from a romantic relationship is not only the not equal parts, but the hidden parts. Would you go on, Rachele? Okay, if you remember, we have just we have already find exam last lesson when we talk about a regulation in Europe that involves the fight against pedopornography and pornography. We are still discussing about XAM. Why? Because if you remember, in the last 2 years, Europe is working on child control and on a set of laws that contrast pedopornography and grooming. And the biggest problem is that all the state members says that XAM put a problem with the privacy of the accounts. I just said the last lesson to me is amazing that someone can think that it's more important to protect a privacy than to contrast an abuse, but so it is. With the last lesson, we talk about XAM because the Europe has extended the duration of the previously regulation on the 3rd of April 2026. Now we are about 10 days after, and EA say that it's no longer extendable. So Europe must work on exam. The voluntary surgeon isn't a proper way to contrast and to fight the internet abuse, the abuse on internet, sorry. So I hope that there will be in a very few weeks the final test of the exam. If you would like, because the last lesson it will be on the 12th of May of this project. If you want, if the exam text will be published after that that date, I will share you with the on mail, because I don't think we can talk about it in the last lesson. I hope, because it's a theme that that for me is very important. But if we wouldn't have time to talk about it, I will share on your emails. Could you go on, Rachele? No problem, Riccardo. I noticed that you came after. So Italy is one of the very first state member that, after the 2011 directive, works on the criminal code and introduce a proper crime about grooming. Would like to talk to the Italian system, because we used to think that Italy is a bit undercovered on the fight against gender-based violence or online crimes. In this time, Italy has had give an answer very quickly in this problem, and we are one of the first state members that describe a proper law on online grooming. Sorry, on online grooming. If you would like to have a look, all the crimes that goes from 609 code and the next, the 69 bis, 69 ter, and so on, are involved on gender-based violence. So you can find rape, you can find pedopornography. We have a section that that regulate all the sexual abuses and all the sexual themes. If you would like, on the code, the Italian code, you can find it in this section. As I said, is the one of the first member state to regulate the online grooming, and the penalty goes from 1 to 3 years of imprisonment. It's important to notice, this is a very technical detail, but I think that it's important. In Italy, we have a system that provides that if you have a penalty under the 4 years of imprisonment, you don't go in jail, but you can have alternative measures like for example, some treatment programs, some I'm just coming, Erica. But the same laws that let people have access to alternative measures also says that if you are condemned of sexual crimes, so from 609 and then, you can't have access to these measures. This is important because the penalty is very, very, very low, from 1 to 3 years. But so normal people think, so I don't go to jail, I have alternative measure. No, with sexual abuse and all the crimes that are same to the sexual abuse, you can have access to alternative measure. Sorry for these very technical details, but I would like to say that, as I previously said, that Italy was the very first state member that write down the definition of grooming, because when we talk about Lanzarote Convention, you can find a very big definition in the very first slide, but Italy goes a bit further and give us a proper definition as any act aim at stimulating the trust of the minor through artifices, flattery, or threats, also carry out use of the internet or other networks or other way of communication. So Italy has given us a very strict definition about grooming, and I said also about online grooming. You can go on, Rachele. What about other member states? For example, France regulate in different ways, because as we have already seen on the pedopornography, some state members regulate in different ways in about the age of the victim. Thinking that for example, a kid of 7 years old is not the same of a 17 years old. And also other state members punish in a harder way. But, and this is important, that all of the state members punish the preparatory conduct. Okay, this slide is very quickly because I would like to put some data. In the last 4 years, grooming is increased at about 18%. Some studies said that the increasing of grooming is has to be linked to the pandemic and to the increasement of the use of the internet and the isolation of teenagers. And it involves the age of from 10 to 13. That, from my point, from my experience, is a very peculiar age, because we used to focus on the kid and on the teenagers. Often we forget to think that 10, 13 is a very difficult stage of the development of a kid and of the increase of the kid, and we ignore the proper proper problems of this stage. Can you go on, Rachele? Okay, now you have little link about a little video about how we can recognize grooming. I would like to say that there are a lot of videos about grooming and about how to recognize. I try to share with you the easy way to talking about it. Please go. Thank you. video that we have just seen has summarized what is grooming and what the features and the behaviors that we can find in a groomer. This slide is as a lawyer type slide because I would like to say to you, what can you do if a kid or a child or a teenager says you that is a victim of a groomer? I'm not, firstly, I just want to say this. I'm a lawyer, so my suggestions are based on my work and on my experience. I'm not a psychologist, so my suggestions about how to treat with the person are very simple. I don't have the experience to say to you how talk and how treat a victim. My experience are based on my work, obviously. So, as we already seen in the previous lessons, talking to a child or a teenager that has been involved in a grooming or in another not proper behavior is never simple. The first step includes get proofs like screenshots or images. On this point, I just say something else. This, to me, is the very, very first thing to do. If you are in a good relationship with the child or the teenager that says to you that is involved in this situation, first of all, try to get proofs. Without proofs, it's very difficult to get the predator. Okay, so the best thing is not is both to get screenshots or images of the previous dialogues, but also maybe to pretend to be the child or the teenagers and get the groomer show off. Then, when you get enough proofs, block the predator. Why? This is not isn't a legal problem or a legal issue, but is something that put in unsafe the victim. The denounce must be made only after step 1 and step 2. Well, this point is very important to me. I work on gender-based violence, and one of the most frequent mistakes that people made is to say to a victim or to other people that you must denunciate the predator, the abuse, the stalker. Yes, it's important, but it's a mistake to it's a mistake. Don't think that you have a previous work to do. For example, in gender-based violence, you have to know if the victim has a familiar link, an economic resource as a work, if the victim after the denounce will be alone, will be without support, and so more vulnerable and more exposed to a return with the predator. So yes, the denounce is important, but it's the final step of a journey that we must prepare the field to denunciate. And so it is on online grooming and online abuse. We have to collect proofs, we have to prepare the victim, and also after we made these steps, help and go denouncing. Near these steps, the therapy is the best suggestion you can do to a victim, because all of us can have tools, the instruments um, to be near to help the victim, but a proper and a professional help is the best thing.
Okay, so when we talk about grooming, we're talking about something that is specific, but we can look at the bigger picture, and that's when we end up with manipulation. When we talk about manipulation, we're talking about a form of social influence where someone attempts to shape or control another person's thoughts, feelings, or behaviors through subtle, hidden, or deceptive strategies. As we did with grooming, we have some key points that we can use as a compass to recognize when this is happening. And for manipulation, this is that there is always a goal. So the person is trying to gain something for themselves, and often at someone else's expense. We saw that for grooming, most of the cases the goal is sexual abuse, um, an abuse, and which can be sexual. There is a symmetry, and this is something I would like to insist a bit more. I have the feeling that um, it's important to maybe deepen the conversation around the symmetry, um, because we are working with young people, and we have to be aware of the fact that the age imbalance is a big power imbalance that then of course as the word suggesting is not allowing two persons to be on the same level, and this means that it's easier for for the part that has more power to exploit the other person's vulnerabilities. This can happen with the gender. This can happen with disabilities. We saw it already, and Camilla reminded us that we saw it when we were talking about gender-based violence. That power is a big topic. You should remember we talked about, we had a very interesting conversation about medical power imbalance when it comes to a doctor, which is an authority. Now, like if we bring the same example down to our own situations, we as youth workers are authorities, because we have a role, and we have to be really careful, like because it came up, we have to be really careful and really aware that requests are not neutral, that our way of communicating is not neutral, our way of relating to younger people is not neutral, and that's why even just to answer also a bit to questions that came up before, even flirting or having a romantic um, relationship with a person underage is bringing up. So now I'm talking from a pedagogical point of view, not from a legal, because that one has been covered very well from Camilla. But from a relational point of view, like we cannot um, mm, we cannot hope to have we cannot expect not hope we cannot expect to have an equal relationship. Equality is not there. It's just not there. Um, and yeah, so just to go back a bit. Yeah, of course. So we have the goal, we have asymmetry, and the absence of transparency. So manipulation is hidden. The person often does not realize that they are being guided toward a choice they would not have really made. Legally talking, I will try to cover this, even though I'm not used to talk legally. Um, so in Italy, there is no specific criminal offense for manipulation, while in other countries in Europe, we have something working well, as is like for instance in France, which is considered one of the countries with the most advanced legislation in this area. It criminalizes the abuse of a person's state of ignorance or vulnerability and recognizes psychological violence as a distinct offense. Examples of manipulation, the list could be very long actually, but we brought here gaslighting, which is when we're making a person doubt their memory, perception, or sense of reality. Love bombing, which is an excessive display of attention, affection, and compliments at the beginning of a relationship to create a rapid emotional attachment. And inducing guilt, which is when a person is made to feel responsible for one's own happiness or sadness. Ricardo, you're referring to the slide, this one. I don't know if Camilla
Yes.
can answer your question.
Yes, yes, I'm here, but I'm searching the relation because it's a very technical science because we have a statement of the constitutional court in 1981 that considered the crime of plagio not I'm just trying to translate in legal English. It was not aligned on the constitutional on the principles because not for the crime, the proper crime, but for because it was not properly defined. Our constitutional chart says that every crime has to be properly defined. In Italian we said principio di tassatività e di determinatezza. So we and plagio as it was written was not so defined. So it's not when it was declared when it has been cancelled, it wasn't because Italy was didn't want to punish plagio, but because it was written in not a constitutional oriented way. Another example of a crime that has been, for example, so I can explain better. You know that in 1981, the Constitutional Court has been cancelled. Sorry, the wedding after the rape. Until 1981, people who made a rape in Italy. Sorry, I just know, I just see that I have the camera off. Until 40 years ago, people who rape a woman can avoid the punishment if they married the victim. In Italy, it was called matrimonio riparatore. This has been cancelled because it was not proper the principles of I arrived. It was against the principle of the constitutional charter. Plagio wasn't against constitutional principle, but was against the way that crimes must be written. I know that it's a very legally technical argument. I can talk about it all the morning, but I wouldn't go off topic. But here I am.
Thank
Just
you.
if you are interested in this topic, I will link some materials, some issues at the email with the slides.
Okay, so let me go back. Okay. So when it comes to manipulation, the interesting, I mean, the lenses that we aim to use are to understand what are the needs that are behind the behavior. So in any kind of manipulation, even for older people, we don't engage because we are naive. We are not manipulated because we don't know how to defend ourselves, but it's because what is happening, it feels meaningful, and behind of it there is a need for connection, need for recognition, need for belonging. I'm standing in the chat, sorry, because I'm going back and forth the windows. So I'm sharing in chat. Unfortunately, this is in Italian, but it's an interesting podcast. Maybe you know it already, and it goes through different stories. The title is Love Bombing, which we saw it before. It's about all these attentions, compliments, all these mechanisms that are happening at the beginning of a relationship to groom. And it's interesting because it goes through different stories, and we can notice so like stories in which it's a romantic relationship at the center, stories in which at the center it's more like a work, there is a work environment. In other ones there are cults involved, and it's really, yeah, again, it's really interesting because what's helping us to do is to shift once again, to shift our perspective and to notice that we could all, they keep repeating this, we could all be manipulated because we all share need for connection, need for recognition, need for belonging. And that's why it's so important for us to start asking ourselves what need is this relationship, in the case we're observing a situation happening, responding to. Yeah, sorry, I will go a bit fast because it's late. So prevention, it's not made by warnings or restrictions, and it's not even made by creating a shameful like a shameful energy around unclear situations. It's instead trying to like we aim to focus on strengthening young people's internal resources in order to be able to navigate complex situations. And when we say autonomously, it doesn't mean that they have to do it alone, but they have like we want them to be able to understand that something is off. Like in the video, we were saying like your instinct is saying that something isn't clear, then maybe trust it. What we want to do is strengthen that instinct that is uh, saying like, for instance, in this situation I cannot say no, or in this situation I'm doing things that I wouldn't like to do, and so on. So how do we do this? We focus on emotional literacy. Young people need language for what they feel, um, in order to be able to navigate even mixed emotions. And this is where it gets quite uh, indeed complex to navigate. It gets tricky because then a person could feel excitement and confusion, discomfort and curiosity, and we need to legitimize this ambivalence and recognize the signals of discomfort, and connecting body signals to emotion, among other things, of course, because even just being able to name emotions, to understand uh, the fact that there is a situation that is triggering an emotion. So, of course, like the skills are many. We just mentioned some. Then it's important to work on the boundaries, which are rarely taught explicitly. So the fact that we can have personal boundaries, and they can be about time, topics, images, intimacy, noticing when a boundary is crossed, and practicing how to express limits. We want to work on agency, um, because we could observe a situation in which the person, again, for the imbalance, doesn't feel free to interrupt, to leave that situation. And what we want instead is that the person knows they can explicitly know, they can block, they can disengage. And we can reframe this disengagement as strength. And then understanding that we don't owe attention, images, or replies. And then, of course, we said it already, Camila was covered that part already, but of course, the fact that they can always ask for help. So the ability of identifying multiple trusted adults, which can be you, for instance. We said not just parents. Practicing how to ask for help, and reinforcing that seeking help will not lead to blame. And when help is asked for, to keep in mind that we are not just informing, and we're modeling a relationship. And that's why, like, even throughout our, like, we want to create an environment of a trustful environment, always, not just when the emergency come up. So we try to be approachable and non-judgmental all the time, and to normalize talking about relationships and online relationship, create safe space for ambiguity and doubt, and avoid victim blaming language.